Hey everybody, it's Tradiest Trades here, and today we're going to do a trade review. I'm going to show you how I profited off of the crude oil market in the last few weeks. I'm going to show you how I identified crude as being a market that's set up for longs with bullish conditions. I'm going to show you how I confirmed that setup using accumulation and seasonals, and then I'm going to finally show you the technical method that I used to get into the trade. So to start with, what was I seeing a few weeks ago that told me that I want to take longs in crude oil? So first of all, the positioning of the commercials, the red line, the commercial commitment of traders index was in a buy zone. This told me that relative to the last 26 weeks of positioning, the commercials were very long. So that was a code. That was bullish code number one. I need at least three. So I kept looking. What did I see next? A sentiment reading of extreme bearish sentiment. So the Williams Sentiment Index tells us the advisor sentiment, the people that are advising people what to buy and sell. Generally speaking, when these guys get to extremes in bearish sentiment, it's a very good sign that we may be close to a bottom, especially when it's juxtaposed or opposite to the positioning of the commercials. So I saw those two things, and that was adding up to a good setup for long. Then I looked at the net positioning. The red line here is overall net positioning of the commercials. What I noticed is net positioning is right up here in this general area that, if you look back in time, generally speaking, when the commercials have got this long, it's been coincided with significant bottoms in the crude oil market. So the positioning looked good to me. And then I also paid attention to the seasonals. That's this blue line here. And what I noticed is that generally speaking, from sometime in mid-March, we put in some sort of significant bottom and rally up until the end of June. So I had three codes or four codes, I guess, saying, you know what, the fundamentals underlying the crude oil market are bullish. So that puts me on alert to look for things to confirm the trade. And that's where we'll go next to the daily time frame. And what did I see on the daily time frame? I'll tidy up this chart a bit and start it from scratch. So what I noticed was signs of accumulation coming into the marketplace with two of my accumulation measurements. So first thing I noticed is price is making lower low here while the Progo indicator is making a higher low. So what that tells me is that there's accumulation coming into the crude oil market. I also noticed lower low here, while price open interest and volume indicator, the green line, is making a higher low. So what that told me is that the crude oil market is being accumulated at a time when the underlying conditions in the marketplace were bullish. So that was the confirmation I needed to go ahead and hunt longs. Also, just looking at the seasonal, the true seasonal on the daily time frame based on 20,000 bars, we can see that generally speaking, we put in a low sometime early to mid-March and rally into end of June. So that was enough for me to say this market is nicely set up, and I'm seeing confirmation from accumulation coming into the marketplace that says I'm good to go and take a long position with a technical entry trigger. And that's exactly what I did. So here's the entry method that I use. So I used a qualified trend line entry. So what I did was I connected two short-term highs and extended the line out into the future. And I bought at the trend line on Tuesday, March 11th. Now, why did I buy at the trend line? Buying at the trend line, it was qualified to buy at the trend line because the bar prior to the entry date was a down close. So the thinking is that on a down close, if the market closes down, the market's bearish. Bears are expecting continued bearish price action. If the market rallies and gets up to that trend line, nobody's expecting that to happen, and you're catching people off guard. It's the failure of this candle, this bearish candle, to do what it's supposed to do, which is continue downward. And that's the trigger to get us in long. So I got in long there. My stop was based on a couple calculations using the 3-period ATR. And my target was initially the extension of this short-term swing in the marketplace up to here. Now you'll notice I got out a little bit early. And the reason I did is because I noticed the 50-day moving average, which is this red line, was price was trading right up into it. So the 50-period moving average was 70.19 and I got out at 70.18. Got out of all 5 of the micro contracts that I was trading. So that is the trade. So I had a fundamental condition underlying the market telling me that this market has fundamentals underline it that suggest it should have a bullish move. Then I had confirmation from accumulation and seasonals, and then finally brought into the technicals. So what do you notice? You notice that I didn't start with technicals. I didn't start with using a technical method or technical analysis. That's the last thing that you look at to get into a trade. So there's lots of layers that get me, that tell me to pay attention, and then tell me to actually pay attention on high alert for entries, and then actually use technicals to get into the market. And just to note, like, I've caught the bottom here, and you increase your odds of catching the bottom or the top if you incorporate that layer of accumulation uh, measurements that I showed you using the daily time frame. It just increases your odds of catching a real move if you use that in your analysis. Now, the fundamental condition that I showed you at the start of the video underlying the oil market isn't just going to disappear in a couple weeks. Like that'll last for a few more weeks, I'd say, at least. So I've caught the initial move. I'm satisfied with that. Now I want to keep milking this move as I anticipate crude oil should have continued movements up. And we've had several of my different trend change mechanisms telling me that we are in a bullish trend. So what I'm going to wait for, and I'll kind of explain what I do or how I would milk this move further, is I'd wait for an oversold pullback. So one of these percent Rs, I have 3% Rs in a single pane here. One of them closes and oversold. I'll look to buy at the high of the bar that closed in the oversold area, and then just trail my stop aggressively up below the low of each day to catch a continuation of this move. So that's how I did this. This is how I trade. It requires a lot of patience, but the nice thing about this process is you have multiple layers of confluence to tell you, yes, this trade is valid to take. It's not just willy nilly trading what you're feeling. It's trading fundamental setup confirmed by accumulation, distribution, and seasonals, and then finally technicals getting you into the trade. So that's it. That's how I profited on this market. I have a screenshot just to show you how I actually made money in this market. I made $2,468.79 on the trade, realized profit. And if you have questions about how I traded this trade or this method of trading, commitment to trader style, you can feel free to shoot me an email, tradiustrades@gmail.com. I also have a private Discord that's free if you'd like to join. There's a great crew of people in there, and we focus on chatting about commitment to trader style strategies. And yeah, what do you guys think coming for crude oil? I'll be curious what you think. Leave a comment if you have thoughts about where crude's going. Maybe you think it's going to 80, maybe you think it's going to 50. I'm curious to hear what you're thinking and seeing and why. As of right now, you know me, I'm bullish crude oil for the short term to near term, medium term, I guess, until the setup switches in the other direction. But that's it for me, you guys, this week. I hope you found this valuable. You learned a little bit about fundamental setups, confirmation, and technical entry method, the qualified trend line. So have yourself a great weekend, everybody, and thanks for listening.